Welcome to today's episode of True to Form with your host, president and co-founder of Crystal Clear, highly regarded speaker, and two-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Tim Sawyer. True to Form is a podcast that highlights leaders making headway in the aesthetic, anti-aging, and elective medical industry. Learn from the experts to discover the secrets of success and pitfalls to avoid when growing all aspects of your elective medical practice. This week's episode is brought to you by Candela, a leading U.S.-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications, including hair removal, wrinkle reduction, tattoo removal, women's health treatments, facial resurfacing, traumatic and surgical scar treatments, body contouring, improving the skin's appearance through the treatment of benign vascular and pigmented lesions, and the treatment of acne, leg veins, and cellulite. Please join me in welcoming your host, the authentic, the transparent, Tim Sawyer.
Hello and welcome to True to Form, the podcast that connects you to the people, technology, and hot topics that shape the elective medical community. Provided to you by Crystal Clear and brought to you by this week's sponsor, Candela, the leading-based global medical aesthetics device company. I'm your host, Tim Sawyer. To our returning guests, welcome back. And for the first-time listeners, we appreciate you joining us and encourage you to become one of the now over 11,000 subscribers. We're really grateful for that. In the last episode, we spoke with Executive Regional Director for Candela, David Pataka, who shared his thoughts and perspective on the future of aesthetics industry, including why chaos creates opportunity for those who can capitalize on it now. If you missed it, you've got to check it out. And with all that said, we have only our second returning guest in over 55 episodes. She is absolutely amazing. She's a good friend. Full disclosure, she's a Crystal Clear client. Her name is Kristy Murrow, and she is the managing partner for Murrow Aesthetics and Laser Center in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Murrow has been recognized as a top 250 status account with Allergan, named in Oklahoma City's Metro 50 Awards multiple times, as well as received national recognition on the Inc. 500 5,000 list of fastest growing privately held companies in America, guys. That's pretty amazing. She's a frequent speaker at professional meetings, and her expertise has been featured in numerous local news broadcasts, radio shows, print, and online media publications. Kristy is also a published author of Facing Success, Creating a Multi-Million-Dollar Business in Tough Economic Times. Not listed on here, but I want to say is for my friends, she also does very exclusive, limited consulting for those who are either starting or want to grow. She's too humble to talk about her success in that, but I'm going to do it for her. So with that all said, Kristy, welcome to True to Form.
Thank you. It's nice to be asked back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I should say welcome back. 2 times.
It was fun. It was fun the first time, so I'm expecting the same.
It's going to be fun. So Kristy, guys, just so everyone knows, she's in Oklahoma City. They are now in phase 3. So Oklahoma City is a little further down the road than most parts of the country. Kristy, you're back open. Tell us a little bit about the process and what's going on right now in Oklahoma City.
Okay, yeah, we actually got our governor's executive order that stated, businesses with elective procedures, minor medical procedures, things like that had to close, along with many, obviously, other businesses. And that was effective March 26th for us. And then we waited until mid-April to kind of see how they were going to start doing the reopening and what phase we would actually fall into. And I was very hopeful because he opened it up for elective surgeries. Once, of course, you started seeing the news where hospitals, in more rural communities and stuff were closing because without elective surgeries, they, didn't have money. So they were furloughing staff and things like that. So he opened up elective surgeries as phase 1. And since we were kind of grouped with elective surgeries, the minor medical procedures I was very hopeful that even before the end of April, we would get to reopen. But he actually extended businesses with, quote, elective minor medical procedures, which would have been us, to May 1st. So yeah, as soon 9 a.m. when we could open our door was wide open. And prior to that, once we knew what that anticipated date was, I kind of rallied our staff. We did our, Zoom calls like many people are doing, and we got our plan in place of what our policies were going to be in opening and what I was expecting for my staff to do in order to start rescheduling. We had about 540 patients that we had to reschedule from that month of being off. And so, we had to have a plan of how we were going to do that. And so, we obviously had our pre-opening meeting and got everybody on the same page. And I laid out, how we were going to start calling and what tasks needed to be done in order to get open. And so, as of May 1st, we're open. We just obviously finished our first full month back in business, and, and it was phenomenal. It was really good.
First of all, and congratulations, but hopefully you felt that there was some pent up demand. But I want to ask you, as you were going through, so many questions I want to ask you about reopening that everybody's going to want to hear about. So number one was, what was the reception like in terms of, so you're opening, what were some of the things that you wanted to highlight to those patients who were on the, the waiting list or trying to get back in terms of safety, and how did you make adjustments as far as that goes?
Okay, so what we're doing now, and it's only relaxed very slightly as we've moved from phase 1 to 2 to 3. Our policy, we sent out an email, of course, to all of our patients, letting them know that we were going to be reopening in this particular phase, and what our policies were going to be, how they were going to be modified for the time being to match what the safety recommendations were. So, that included taking temperatures of every patient coming in the door, and 100.4 was our cutoff, which was what was recommended. We haven't done anything more restrictive than what was necessary. So it was the 100.4 temperature, and then before their appointment, the day before, my front office contacted them by phone to ask them just the basic health screening issues. Have you been feeling ill? Do you have any of the following symptoms? Have you been in the same home with people with these symptoms, or have you been around? Have you traveled? Those kinds of questions, the same questions that, again, they've posted on many different sites, including the CDC site, things like that. Lots of different medical sites obviously have put recommended questions for screening. So my staff would contact them, and if there was anything that didn't fit that would allow them to not come, then we rescheduled them right then. And so we let them know that, unfortunately, we can't see them quite yet. Why don't we give you another few days to get better, get your temperature down, that kind of thing, and then let's do this again. So, we made those calls and pre-screened. For anybody that they couldn't get a hold of, they did leave messages and let them know, please check your email. We sent it out with what the requirements are, for safety, and just reiterated that. And the first week, I think we probably had 2 or 3, maybe a day, where my staff would come back and go, oh, so-and-so's temp is 100.6, but there are no symptoms, and they haven't been around anybody, and they've been quarantining at home, and, what's going on? Okay, it was 90 degrees outside, and people were sitting in their cars because we had told them, please come really close to your appointment time, because we can't have a bunch of people in the waiting room. At that time, it was limited to 10, groups of 10. So we asked them to please, arrive close to your appointment time, stay in your car until your appointment time, and then come in. Well, they were coming in after turning their cars off and sitting in the heat, and so we sent them back out, told them to turn on their air conditioning and come back in 5 minutes, and the temps were all fine. So you have to also make sure, I didn't think to tell my staff, hey, we have to use some common sense here, and we have to think through the problem, kind of thing. But once we realized what was happening, then they were instructed on what to do and what to say to the patient, so that we're not turning patients away unnecessarily. The whole goal is to get everybody back in the door, not try to exclude people, So we ran into a little bit of that, but we sent out an email basically advising them of how we were going to do things, and they were very, very compliant with that.
Wow. And were people walking in, because the difference is I'm in the Northeast, right? So we're into a 10-week lockdown. They've got everybody freaked out, and it's very different, right? So we still can't go into a restaurant or have a drink at a bar or anything like that. And I think it's affecting people's psyche a little bit. And
yep.
I have no interest in getting on an airplane, because I'm questioning, I'm going to get coronavirus, even though people out of a billion got it. But So how has the patient's reaction been in terms of they walk in, they see 10 people, they're cool. Do they want masks, not want masks? And what's the vibe?
Yeah, I wondered that too. Like, okay, am I going to get a bunch of people in that, are doing this? And to be honest, I don't know if again, we're here in the Midwest. We're kind of like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and put your big girl panties on and deal with it kind of people, around here. So maybe we're not as worried about things, or maybe, when you are around tornadoes a lot, you just don't get panicked very easily, so you're like, I don't know if we're just not letting things bother us or what. But the truth is we had probably the first week, maybe 50% of the people wore masks. And I'd say the other 50%, half of those probably had a mask with them because they didn't know if we were going to be requiring it or not, inside. And so, we have a sign posted on our front desk that was like, please let, any of our staff know if you would prefer us to wear a mask for you, and right. Some people did request it and some did not. If they requested it, we absolutely wore it. If not, then we were fine because they were fine, and, by the second week, I would say those numbers were down by half. And fewer and fewer people were requesting it, and fewer people were coming in wearing one, because if they had been here or they had been checking with us, they knew that it was optional. And, our numbers here in Oklahoma haven't been what you guys have experienced, obviously. And so, there's a little less of that going on. But again, we still have people that have a certain amount of anxiety over it, probably spend a little too much time on the news and things like that, where he kind of builds up that anxiety beyond what the numbers in Oklahoma really warrant. But again, it's about making them feel comfortable. And if they feel safer having me wear a mask, I will be happy to wear one. But don't come for lip filler if you're going to be 100% scared without your mask on, because clearly I can't do your lips with your mask on, so they have to use their common sense too.
Yeah. So how are you dealing with that, right? So if someone's coming in to get stuff done around the lower part of the face, they got to be comfortable.
Yeah, I will tell you this. What makes me laugh probably the most, and maybe it shouldn't, and I certainly don't want to offend anybody who's listening who is concerned about this, but I have had patients who come in and they look around, and you can see when they come in the front door, should I wear a mask? They have their mask on. They ask my staff to wear a mask to take their temperatures, all of that. They're very pro-mask. Yep. Then they get in the chair and you say they want their lips done, and you're like, okay, well, you're going to have your mask down for me to do, even though I have mine on because they've requested it. They're like, oh, no big deal. They take it off, throw it in their purse. Like, oh, I'm so glad not to have to wear that. I'm like, you just made everybody in my office put a mask on around you, and you're more than happy to take yours off. It's like, what does that mean exactly, And so I think part of it too is where if they're around other people who are a little bit maybe less anxious, or I've had a lot of patients question me, and they'll say, well, what is your opinion as a medical provider? What is your opinion of the safety of the mask? What is your opinion of gloves? What is your opinion of hand washing? What is your opinion, of that? And I mean, I'm always very careful. I'm sure every provider is kind of careful because you don't want to offend anybody or anything like that. But every provider has their own take on the situation based on the statistics that they have available to them. We're all trained to look at numbers. So we're all trained to look at the big picture of a medical illness and kind of break it down, And so I just tell them what my honest opinion is. And honestly, my patients that have been with me for 10 years trust me. And they know I'm not going to put them in harm's way. So if I tell them that, I'm very confident that I am not going to be able to pass on something to them, then they trust that. And is anybody ever going to be 100% sure? Maybe not. Maybe I got it that morning. You know what I mean? Maybe I was exposed in the morning at Sonic and I didn't know or whatever. But it's just, they trust that. And they also know that, in 10 years, I've never put them in harm's way. I would never put them in harm's way, but I can never be 100% sure of anything, nor can anybody. When I treat them with Botox, I can't be 100% sure of every safety thing. When they have filler, there are risks to take. So I think in my environment and with the trust factor between provider and patient has to be such that I cannot guarantee you 100% of anything. Safety with my filler, I can just do the best that I can do with my knowledge at that time, and I will do my best to keep you safe and you do your best to keep me safe and we're all good. And honestly, I have not really gotten a lot of pushback. I had one patient come into the office who she came in, she even sat down a minute and was planning to have her appointment. And then I think she kind of got scared a little bit and was like, maybe she's older. She's one of my 70-plus-year-old patients. And I think just in her mind, she started thinking back to everything she had been hearing. And she just approached the front desk a little bit, kept her 6 feet and said, I don't know. I'm not sure I feel great about this. I'm going to go home. Can I reschedule for next week? Okay. Yeah. So we rescheduled her for next week and she left. And she wasn't shamed, she wasn't made to feel bad about that. It's like, it's America. We all have the right to make our choices. You either want your appointment or you don't. And it's fine either way. And I think that people have to feel a certain amount of comfort coming into your practice.
Do you ever think about running for office?
Trust me, people don't want that. I'm way too. Let's use some common sense here, people. That's my whole approach to everything.
We need some voice of reason going on here, and it seems like, and I say that happened, Jess, but I think the leadership in the practice makes all the difference, right? Because if you're anxious and fidgety, and you're almost you're contributing to the anxiety versus a very
exactly.
That's cool, no problem. We want you to feel comfy. And that trickles down. That's why you are as successful as you are, because that leadership makes a big difference. And so, speaking of numbers, though, you and I were talking briefly. In terms of demand, so you're open, people can come in and get. Now, can they get every treatment and procedure that they could 3 months ago?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
With the caveat that if I don't feel like it is safe to do something for them for any particular reason, just like any other time, then I would say now's not a good time for us to do that for you because of XYZ, and I would have done that anyway. I again, as a medical provider, I always pay attention to the circumstance and the situation and the safety of the patient, and having a virus that people are maybe a little bit more unfamiliar with isn't going to change that for me. I'm still going to treat it like the medical condition that it is, as a virus, and take the same thought process and precautions that I would normally take. So yes, all my services are available, but maybe not to every single person, depending on their situation. I know I was on a call with people with a group, kind of a little think tank thing, and we were all sharing, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And some people were saying, well, we're open for Botox, but not for filler. Or, well, we'll do filler in the mid-face, but not for the lips. Or we'll do filler. And I'm like, okay, but my arms are only so long. So I have to stand at the same place by the chair to do their mid-face as I do to do their lip, And yes, they have to take the mask down, but truthfully, if you're going to do a good mid-face, you need the mask down anyway, because you have to see the OG curve properly. You have to, you know what I mean? So I'm not really sure what the rationale is for that. But again, it made them feel safer to treat that way. So it's America. They can do that if they want to,
right.
And so, but I just, again, I'm very much if I can't find the logic in it, then I'm not going to do it just because,
right.
It needs to make sense to me so I can have it make sense to my patient.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. So let's talk numbers. You can do most procedures that you feel are appropriate. What have you seen in terms of demand, the first couple of weeks, and is it going up? Are people getting anxious, excited? What's that been like?
I feel like there's a lot of excitement. I do agree that like I said, we had a lot of appointments to reschedule. When we closed in March, we had about 130, 140 appointments already booked for May. Yep. And then we, of course, had all of our April appointments that had to be rescheduled into May on top of the ones that were already booked for May. And so, our May was very busy. We did track, and I would encourage people when they reopen, we made a spreadsheet and we went back to the days that we were closed, and we counted all of our appointments so that and then we divided it into categories of which ones were rescheduled, which were consults that rescheduled, which were treatments that rescheduled, which were follow-ups that rescheduled, and then which ones canceled, and which ones were we not able to contact. So, because I had read a statistic that said, I think in, maybe it was even China, as they reopened, they were seeing like 83% of the practices reopened, but their patient capture, their recapture rate of those appointments was like 49%. And I was like, okay, that is not good. I mean, in my opinion, they were happy with that. I thought that was not great. I was not going to be happy with losing 50% of my, business, from that month. So, so we started tracking it so that we would know exactly what are we recapturing. And our initial numbers, we had recaptured 68%. And the following week, as we continued to call and get patients rescheduled and get some of our no contacts contacted, then, we ended up with 76% of our treatments, rescheduled, almost every one of our consults rescheduled. And then our follow-ups, I had my providers in the back office do those by phone. Yep. And if they were happy and all of that, then we just made our medical note on that and closed it out. If they needed a touch up or we wanted to see them because of anything that may have happened during their treatment, then as we talked to them, then we scheduled them at that time. So otherwise, we just went ahead and charted it as a phone note that we followed up and they were happy with their treatment. We ended up with only 2.9% of our patients canceled of those 540 appointments or whatever. So I felt like with those numbers, people were very, very anxiously waiting to get back in. They wanted us to be open and they wanted us to be able to treat them. So we got everything. What we counted as a contact was a phone call that was answered, a text that was answered, or an email that was answered. And my front office could not quit contacting people until they had had 4 attempts, 3 by phone, 1 final email. And so whether they texted or called, they had to do that 3 times before they sent a final email that was basically hey, we've tried to contact you. We are reopened. Here's our little policies. Please give us a call. We definitely want you to come, kind of thing. And so we ended up with, less than 10% maybe that we couldn't contact. So we were able to reach out and proactively recapture at least contact 90%, of which most have come in or have an appointment to come in. So I was pleased with that. I mean, I'm always 100% kind of person. I would have loved to have had 100%, but I'll take what I got. I felt pretty good about that. And our May revenue actually was up by almost 3% over May of last year. So I know part of that is just the general excitement. Everybody wanted to get out of their house. They wanted to get away from their children, whatever it might be. They were just thrilled to be free, And so there was some of that which helped. But even what I've seen these first few days of June, the numbers are still staying true, both our patient counts and the revenue that they're spending. So I've been cautiously optimistic about how this is going. So
that's great. And what a great, great message for folks listening that, hey, this could be okay. Now, you're executing borderline flawlessly, if not flawlessly. What are some of the things that, as you've gone through this process, do you have any kind of no-nos as people contemplate how to open up, things to avoid, or any lessons that you want to provide these folks with?
I would say maybe from just something that I've learned. Sometimes I assume the message I want to put out or the verbiage I want used or whatever would come naturally to anyone, and what I'm learning is it doesn't, and I would just have, the practice owners, the providers really think about how they want their reopening and their safety and things like that presented to patients, because I really feel like part of our success is due to the presentation. You can present things kind of wishy-washy or iffy, or like you said, kind of anxiety-ridden and kind of be part of that, or you can be the calming force, the trusted name, the trusted voice, and people will feel much more confident and comfortable in coming. And what may be natural to me to do, I've found that training my staff, and this is what I want you to say on the phone. And when if they have this feedback, this is what I want you to say in response to that. And this is what I want. It needs to sound like this, and it needs to sound like that. Make sure that we're not in any way using verbiage that might be offensive to someone or might make them feel somehow shamed, to not want to do something or whatever. I would never want that. But again, none of my staff would do any of that intentionally, but sometimes you do it without thinking about how it might sound to someone. So I would just tell people, if they haven't opened it, that might be something worthwhile to do, is to kind of practice some of that verbiage among yourselves and kind of see, how does that sound? How would I take that if I was a nervous Nellie, kind of thing, and that kind of situation, so that they're really prepared to handle the different types of feelings and emotions that people are having about it, especially in an area where you are, like you said, where, you're still locked down,
Yeah.
and so I was going nuts after 5 weeks. So I can't even imagine I would be a case right now if 10 weeks out I was still stuck in my house, So I think the feelings and the emotions are going to be probably a little ratcheted up with you guys compared to what we dealt with. And we still had an issue. And I'm glad that we took the time to kind of walk my staff through different kinds of verbiage to use so that it sounded the right way.
It's a good point. And I think just so that our guests don't miss that, what Kristy's saying is you really have to be mindful of the messaging that goes out in the initial reopening and beyond, and beyond. And I loved the verbiage that you use. I was just jotting it down. Calm, safe, easy, confident, comfortable. These are the types of this is the type of verbiage that we need to convey, not just in the written word, but it's got to carry through, Kristy, as you mentioned, through employee training, right? You've got to do some role playing and some scripting and first get everybody inside comfortable with that language. It makes a huge difference. Which leads me to, as we wind down, my last round of inquiries. So are you still, kind of putting you on the spot here, but are you still talking to potential consulting customers, and what's going on with that?
Yes, I have been. As a matter of fact, earlier this week, or actually I guess it was Friday of last week, I lose track of my days after you get caught in your house for so long. Last Friday, I was actually visiting. I was doing an on-site visit with one of the clients that I'm working with. I'm super excited about the potential. They've reopened as well. They were closed as well, and which honestly gave them some time that they needed to regroup, to make some plans, to get some things in place so that now they have a good plan to execute. And so I was down there helping them kind of do that, walk through some of the issues that they're having. And so it was exciting because I feel like for some people, it's a little bit of a reset. And everybody kind of needs that every now and then, right? So I would say even to a practice that's kind of struggling and all of that, if they feel like, hey, I should take advantage of this time and reset things and get a plan in place, maybe I can help you think through that. I don't know. But it was a lot of fun to see that and to get the excitement of somebody who feels like they have a fresh start. So, yeah, I do still offer those services, and I do work with clients for that.
Cool. And if somebody was interested in that, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Normally it would be through our website, but we're redoing our landing page for that right now. So probably the easiest thing would be to just contact my office. The number is on our website, mariposaokc.com. And they'll find our office number. If someone's writing it down, if they're listening and they're interested, it's 405-759-7546. And they can just ask for me, Kristy Murrow, or ask for my practice administrator, Toby. And either one of us can kind of get some information from you and kind of see if this is a good fit for you or not. That's
good. And again, I'm always grateful for having you on the podcast. It's a blessing, and I really think it's cool, all the work that you're doing. I know your capital is going up in elective and aesthetic medicine, and there's a lot of demand for you as a speaker now, and I'm super, super grateful for you spending the time with us. And I do know some folks that have utilized you in talking through the consulting stuff, and they are very grateful. So for those of you listening, Kristy is a really great, super, super smart, creative, driven businesswoman who has the added benefit of Oklahoma City humble, which I think is really cool. And that's what makes you even more dangerous. So I encourage people to reach out. So Kristy, thank you so much again for coming on today. Good luck with the opening. Obviously, the practice is in your very capable hands at all times, and they're going to do amazing. So I want to thank you, Kristy, for coming on today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. As I mentioned, this week's sponsor, Candela, check them out, the leading U.S. global medical aesthetic device company. And again, I'm your host, Tim Sawyer. We appreciate you taking the time. If you want to learn more about Crystal Clear, we encourage you to go to crystalcleardm.com. That's crystalcleardm.com. Talk to the guys, and they'll be more than happy to help you. And once again, Kristy, thank you for joining the program, as always, and we can't wait to have you back soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of True to Form, brought to you by Candela, a leading U.S.-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications. To learn more about this week's podcast sponsor, visit candelamedical.com. And to learn more about your podcast provider, Crystal Clear, visit crystalcleardm.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all your favorite music apps, including iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and TuneIn to stay up to date with the newest episodes. Thank you for listening.